76ers come back from their road trip, hopefully with vengeance on their minds as they take on the New York Knicks tonight. We'll break down why this is going to be a huge test for your 10-9-8 76ers. All that in this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 sports podcast network out there. This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Winter games are on. Who doesn't enjoy curling? You know what I mean? And there's no better way to follow them when with FanDuel. So make sure you guys are downloading the FanDuel app and play your game on FanDuel. Keith Pompey, your writer for the 76ers for Inquirer.com. Marc Farzetta, veteran sports talker with you in the city of brotherly love. We got so much to get into today. Just overall injury status for the Sixers going into this Knicks game tonight. The Sixers add a two-way deal here, I believe it is, with Dalen Terry. We'll talk about that with Keith. Also, this test for the Knicks is a huge test for them. Now, Keith, they're getting the Knicks again when they could be a little tired. Seems like three other times this season they've caught them, or two other times they've caught them. Three times with heavy workloads, I'll say that. Two other times on back-to-backs. Same thing tonight in their last meeting with the Knicks. They lost in overtime to the Indiana Pacers despite 40 points from Jalen Brunson. They lost in overtime to those Pacers at home before traveling to South Philly to take on the Sixers tonight. It feels like hopefully there's not a New York takeover at the Xfinity Mobile Arena tonight, Keith, but it feels like I have a little playoff itch when I think about this game.
Yeah, a huge playoff itch, and I do think it's going to be a New York takeover. I mean, It's easier for them to get a ticket here than it is for them up in New York. A whole lot cheaper, too, I might add. To me, it's more so than a playoff itch. It's kind of like, nothing against the teams out west. The 76ers, I felt that Phoenix Suns victory was a good victory. A couple other ones were as well. But I feel like this is going to be a true test for the new look 76ers and also for what they're going to need, right? The New York Knicks, we know that they're going to come in. They're going to be aggressive. And, the 76ers have defeated them 2 of the last 3 times. But the last time, they kind of they didn't really look to play well against the Knicks when they played them here a couple weeks ago. So for me, we're looking at the Sixers. They're saying they need a backup guard. Well, okay, they're saying they may need some rebounding. They better perimeter defense, this and that. I think that this game is going to be able to give the Sixers a better idea of what they need in the buyout market.
It's going to sound like I'm joking, but should Sixers fans be rooting for them to get blown out tonight so that maybe, just maybe, they make more of a significant move in terms of being active on the trade deadline, or excuse me, the buyout market?
I mean, the thing is, it's like you can only get what you can afford. That's the only problem. Again, there's like a little percentage or whatever, but, maybe you would think that the Sixers, I hate to say this, after they lost to the Portland Trailblazers, if they don't realize they need some help right then and there, then they never will. The thing about that one is, I know everybody says some people are torn with Jared McCain, right? But at the same time, that was a game where you were forced to give Kyle Lowry play him 18 minutes when he is more or less in this stage of his career a player coach, right? So with that being said, it's kind of like, dude, you don't need another blowout to determine what you need and what you don't need. So here's the thing. But what's intriguing is the thing that pay attention to is, I guess, to see if Charles Bassey will ever find his way on the floor. This is, his second 10 days up on Valentine's Day, which is Saturday. So let's just see if he'll finally get some burn for the 76ers, because he's a quality rebounder. They need rebounding, but he hasn't received an opportunity to play for the Sixers.
Here's one of the things that's hanging over my head for tonight, other than the excitement of just taking on the Knicks and a measuring stick game and a playoff type feel. You don't get both of these, okay? You don't get both. Keith, you don't get to look ahead in Portland to taking on the Knicks, looking at it as the last game of a five-game West Coast swing, 9 games out there on the West Coast. You don't get to have a look-ahead game or a getaway day and then get to that day, and that day is tonight against the Knicks, and then all of a sudden lollygag through a very important game. You know what I mean? You don't get to have that return to home lull that we have seen from the 76ers. We talked about it earlier in the year. In games where they come back home after more than one game on the road, I think they were something like 3-4. I mean, they struggle at home to begin with their terrible home record. But on top of it, when they come home from a road trip, they have that real lag, that not jet lag by any means, but they have that kind of lull to their game. You don't get both of those. You don't get to look ahead, and then when you look ahead to, lay a stinker, for instance. And I hope there's some way that Tyrese Maxey can get this team going. Joel Embiid, if he plays tonight, get them going. Nick Nurse, get them going and prepared for this. We've talked a lot about the third quarter lull, but coming back home and playing at home in general, how do they avoid that tonight?
Well, this is a tough game for the Sixers. I mean, we just got to throw that out there. The worst 2 games are when you're on a road trip and coming off the road trip is the final game of the road trip, because the final game of the road trip, guys are like you say, and they're thinking about, man, I can't wait to go home. I can't wait to sleep in my own bed. And then when you talk about it, it's like how, they were in Portland. I mean, they were in, that's like the Pacific Northwest. They were way over there.
Yeah.
So they had to fly after the game. They flew home. It's probably the longest flight that you have to take in the NBA, right? So you had to fly home. You got home in the morning sometime yesterday. Then you try to rest up to give them additional rest or not having shoot around this morning. And then what's going to happen is you got to play. And typically your first game back from an extended road trip is normally your worst game, because it takes a while. So for me, this is a tough task. And then in addition to that, you got guys thinking about, all right, well, tomorrow morning, I got my bags packed already because me and the family, we're going on vacation for 7 days, right? So This is a tough task for the Sixers. And, they could be locked in. The best thing for them is thinking like, you know what, maybe the Knicks are thinking the same. Maybe some of those guys are doing it. But, this is, I hate to say it, but I could see where this could be a scheduling loss for the 76ers. I mean, You're playing a tough team in the New York Knicks. You're coming off of a 9-game road trip on the West Coast. And next thing you know, you got Tyrese Maxey and BJ Edgecombe having to fly back to California tomorrow. So it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal for the Sixers.
I referenced it earlier. Yeah, Sixers are now 2 games over 500 at home. They're 15-13 at home, 15-10 on the road. But again, have been an under 500 team when coming back from a road trip of 2 games or more back to South Philly. Now, as far as the Knicks go tonight, I absolutely agree. Rough. This is going to be a tough one, I think, for the Sixers. But I don't know what to buy into when you just talk about overall philosophy. Knicks have struggled coming off back-to-backs, especially when taking on the Sixers. Heavy workloads, then taking on the Sixers. It's been rough for the Knicks. But the Knicks are not only coming off a back-to-back, they're coming off an overtime loss, going into a back-to-back with an overtime loss, but also a loss against a very undermanned Indiana Pacers team. So do you buy into the idea they could be fatigued? Could they have the scheduled loss? Or do you buy into the idea they're coming off a loss to a team they should have beaten and might play with an extra edge tonight, not just because the edge you play when you play the Sixers or play with when you play the Sixers, but an edge because you're coming off a game you should have won?
I'd rather be in the Knicks situation than the 76ers situation. The reason being is I understand that was an overtime loss to the Indiana Pacers, but it also was an overtime loss at home, right? Whereas, bad loss, lost at home. And then when we look at that loss, that was after them coming back from a 2-game road trip, coming back from Detroit and Boston, which was, 2 pretty good games, pretty like solid performances. And then you got the Sixers coming up. I look at that one as a letdown game. So they lost it. But the reason why I'd rather be in their situation is because I don't know how they got to Philadelphia, but I'm assuming either they at Penn Station, they maybe reserved the train, boom, came straight down, or they got on a bus service and then drove down. Well, the thing about it is, with a police escort, with all that other stuff, it's not going to take them long to get to Philly, right? You know what I mean? It's like, heck, some of those dudes might have been back in their bed before, like, after a regular game, where they're sitting after the game, hanging out with their buddies, and let's get a drink. Let's go to the club a little bit. Let's hang out. So they were in Philly around about the same time, in bed around the same time they normally would be, if not sooner. So to me, when you factor in the travel, you factor in the fact that this is a team that says, you know what, we let one slip away against the Pacers. Like, we really overlooked the Pacers because we were thinking about the Sixers. I mean, I'd rather be in that situation than in the situation where the Sixers are, where they just fatigued and coming back. If that makes sense. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I just hope the traffic on 95 was terrible then if they took the bus, Maybe there was something wrong with the train. Maybe they had to wait on the tracks for a little while. I don't know. These are all things I'm grasping at straws with just to hope that the Sixers win going into the All-Star break. When we come back, Keith, we're going to talk about a new guy here with the 76ers. So we look forward to seeing what he can do for the Sixers, if anything. That's Dalen Terry. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Back after this. Right now, it's time to tell you about Indeed. Indeed's where it's at, ladies and gentlemen. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background for the right position with your company, and that's where Indeed comes in, because instead of just hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and the location as well. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just look for someone that could, maybe they can help. No, I want someone I know can help and know that they are the right person for the job. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches and more time finding the right candidate. And with sponsored jobs from Indeed, your post gets seen by candidates who actually fit. How much sense does that make? A whole lot? Yeah. Here's a stat. Since I've been telling you about Indeed, how about this? Since I've been talking about it, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help you get the job, get the right person for the job with premium status, and get it listed with that premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. And how about the Gametime app? Oh, boy. NBA games, NBA All-Star game, if you're going out there, the crowd, the energy, the moment, Gametime app has you covered because they get you into the game. Pull up the Gametime app. You pick an upcoming NBA game, maybe a hockey game later on, Olympics, whatever it might be. Gametime app has you covered. Love seeing all the prices up front, by the way, so you don't get that sticker shock when you go to check out. Wait a minute, how do these $30 tickets become $40? How does that make any sense? That's not a convenience fee. Rather inconvenient when you think about it. Gametime app has the all-in pricing up front, and that's why the Gametime app is the go-to app for scoring tickets fast. Also, you can view your seat's vantage point before you buy it, so you take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Take that guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. Download the Gametime app today. Don't forget about the Gametime guarantee on the Gametime app. And finally, the Everydayer Club. You need this, folks. You want this, folks. The Everydayer Club with Locked On Sports, especially Locked On 76ers. Of course, we appreciate you making Locked On 76ers part of your first listen every day on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcast sports network out there. And if you haven't already checked out the Everydayer Club, here's what you get. Access to ad-free audio feed of Locked On 76ers compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast application. An invite for members only Discord, by the way, for the Everydayer Club, so you can talk all Sixers all the time. So make sure you go to lockedon76ers.supercast.com. That's lockedon76ers.supercast.com and sign up to join the Everydayer Club. Well, the Sixers did add somewhat, Keith. What do we got here? A 10-day contract with Dalen Terry? What's the situation?
No, he's actually a two-way player.
Two-way deal. Sorry.
Yeah, he's a former first-round pick at 2022 with the Chicago Bulls. He's a 6'6" guard. He's shooting a career best 40% from three this year. Is actually, what is it? It's 41.3%. But for 4 years, he was been a 31% shooter. So that's always been a knock on him, right? But he's 6'6". He has a 7-foot wingspan. He's regarded as a high energy player and a versatile perimeter defender. Recognized for active hands, he has the ability to generate deflections. Now, it's one of these things where he was a guy who, he was a reserve for the most part for over 3.5 seasons with the Knicks. He averaged 3.5 points, 1.7 rebounds, and 1.2 assists in 204 games, right? He had 7 starts. But, he was one of those guys who, came off the bench, just provided a little bit of energy and stuff like that. So he is an actual NBA player. Like, I'm not going to say like he's a guy that he's a G leaguer, trying to do it. The knock on him is that he just couldn't shoot the ball. But, you look at it, it's a guy that you got for value in regards to saying there's a two-way contract. He's going to be eligible to play in 18 of their final 29 games. So that's a bonus. But again, it's just a matter of how is it going to fit and what is he going to do. But it's not a bad two-way signing. It's not at all.
He's got one game only this year where he scored in double figures. It was 11 points against the Utah Jazz. He played 13 minutes that game. So, I mean, that's efficiency if you're looking for efficiency. But that's been pretty much it for him. Recently, 2 of his last 3 games, he played 29 minutes, 28 minutes. Both those games were against Miami. He hit 8 points and 9 points in those games, respectively. And got 6 points in his last game played back on the 3rd against the Milwaukee Bucks in a 131-115 loss for the Bulls. He's only played against the Sixers once this season, despite the Sixers having played the Bulls now 3 times, I think it's been. But he only played 14 minutes in that game, only came up with 2 points. And yeah, the number one thing that jumped out to me was the 3-point shooting this year. 41.3% is pretty good, but also he is averaging less than a 3 a game. So he's not exactly out there to, but hey, make the most of your opportunities, right? That's what we're asking Dalen Terry to do. So any expectations you have for him and what he could do to help the Sixers squad?
It's hard. Like, I think that when we look at the Sixers right now, this is maybe it's just coincidental, right? But a night after they get torched by the Portland Trailblazers with giving up threes and everything like that, and the defense was non-existent, that you go out there and get a quality perimeter defender, right? So I think that if I'm the Sixers, the biggest wish and the hope that I'm hoping that he can do is that he can help out, on a perimeter D. Like, he's not going to be someone that's going to, you're going to look to and say to yourself, like, yo, I need you to knock down these shots. I need you to do a lot of different things. but he could be someone who can come in and give you some minutes, with defense. Now, the only thing is, here's the deal. They're also going to need somebody who's going to help them in the postseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're a two-way player, unless you get your contract converted to a standard deal, you're not going to be able to help the team in the playoffs with what you think that you can do. So, right there is a lot that the 76ers have, and they got decisions to make, with him. But, one thing I will say for him is that, when you look at the Chicago Bulls, they always had a slew of guards. I mean, you had Kobe White, who they traded, but they also had Josh Giddey, who was like torching a lot of, people. So I think that it was like more or less, this is my role. This is what I have to do. I'm going to be a defender, and I talked to somebody yesterday who known him since high school or, kept up with his career when he grew up in the Phoenix area. And this guy was like, he just wasn't an offensive player. He played hard. He did a lot of other things. But at the same time, he was a first-round pick, right, for the Chicago Bulls. So we'll see. But, you give him a look, and then you got to decide what you want to do with him. But, to me, it's all about building pieces to get to the playoffs with. But if he's on a two-way contract, he's going to be inactive for the playoffs. So I don't know if this is going to help you long-term for this season. You know what I mean? Maybe it's something that you can get a quick look at for the next couple of days. But you only get one day tonight and then come right back after the All-Star break to see what he can do.
All right, we're going to take a look at who the Sixers are going to have available for tonight's game against the New York Knicks. Looking at the injury report as it is right now at 8:05 in the morning. It ain't looking good, Keith, but we'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Back after this. How about FanDuel? You guys on FanDuel? You guys go to the FanDuel app? You guys download the FanDuel app at FanDuel.com. Winter games officially here. Get in on the action with FanDuel. No better way to follow, no better way to bet than with FanDuel. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel, it makes so much sense when you think about it. You talk about medal counts, talk about individual events, talk about finding your angle on the sports that you're just learning about, maybe. Curling, for instance. FanDuel's got it all. The drama of curling matches that start slow somehow get intense real fast. Speed skating races decided by inches, fractions of inches. Hockey games, of course. Team USA women's, Team USA men's. Can't wait. Even niche events become must-watch events. Locked-in competition that gets you excited. And FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on. There's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. So I have it pulled up here in front of me, Keith. The injury report as it is right now for the 76ers and New York Knicks. Knicks have not submitted anything yet. I assume because of the back-to-back they don't have to. Not yet, at least. Dom Barlow, questionable, injury, illness. Okay. Joel Embiid, questionable, injury, illness, right knee injury management. Paul George is out with suspension. Quentin Grimes, questionable, injury, illness. Kelly Oubre, available, injury, illness, left knee injury recovery, brace. Okay. So Barlow, Embiid, Grimes, questionable for tonight's game. What's your feeling on what's going to happen tonight?
I don't know. I think the reason why they're all listed as questionable the way that they are, well, first of all, I think Joel's going to be on the injury report, like, for moving forward for now, right, here on out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we've seen him on there with, that nice, beautiful word probable next to him.
Yeah, but I think what happened is, right now, I think that you have to have something submitted for these three guys so you don't get fined or whatever. But I think what occurred yesterday, for the most part, was that, they flew home. I mean, the day before, they flew home right after the game. Yesterday, some people may have come in to get some treatment, but for the most part, it was more or less, look, just take the day off and rest up. But we got to come out with something for the injury report. So right now, until we get you guys in to the facility and see where you are, catch up with you, we're going to list everybody as questionable. That's how I'm taking it. right, for right now, because it's not really telling you anything at all. Like, you know what I mean? Now, again, but here's the deal. Like, unfortunately, they've been having Quentin Grimes and Embiid and all these dudes listed as questionable or listed as probable, even up to when Nick Nurse would talk at 5:15 for a 7:00 game, and everyone's like rolling their eyes, knowing like, come on, man, y'all know what the deal is. Is he going to play or not? You know what I mean? So to me, I just feel like teams are just doing this right now, and especially the Sixers, just so they don't have another fine coming for them not being transparent on the injury report. That's all.
Fair enough. All right. Well, if I have to see Kyle Lowry play another 18 minutes, I think I'll be on the injury report for tomorrow's show for slamming my head against the wall. I think that might be my status for tomorrow, Keith. Questionable. So yeah, we hope that we don't have to see that happen tonight. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Locked on 76ers right here. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow, normal time tomorrow, 10 o'clock, to break down hopefully what will be a 76ers win before the All-Star break tonight against the New York Knicks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Locked on 76ers. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. See you then.